Hey guys, we're gonna go over cell transport today, okay? And how cells maintain homeostasis by moving particles in and out of the cell. Okay, there's different ways that they do that. There's some ways that require energy. There's other ways that do not require energy, and that's how we're gonna organize them today. Just like we organize our prokaryotics and eukaryotics in a kind of like a dichotomous key, we're gonna do the same thing here. We're gonna create a thinking map that will show us uh, the transport methods that require energy and those that do not. The first one is called passive transport. The second one is active transport. Okay, one of these require energy, the other one doesn't. Active, just like it says in the name, is active, so it requires energy. And energy is needed to make that process happen. Passive transport does not require energy. Okay, and there's three examples of that. The three examples are going to be facilitated diffusion, osmosis, and diffusion. Facilitated diffusion, okay, is just the movement of particles from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration, and it does not require energy. Think of on passive transport, think of it as a roller coaster, okay? When you're on top of the roller coaster and they let go of that little cart, you go down and it doesn't require energy, and that's because you're going from high to low. Same thing in our in facilitated diffusion. Okay, it's just that in facilitated diffusion, you those particles that are going from high to low actually need help of proteins to facilitate the crossing of the cells through the cell membrane. Okay, now the next one that we're going to look at, okay, is osmosis. And osmosis, okay, osmosis is just the diffusion of water from an area of high concentration, okay, to an area of low concentration. And again, passive transport is high to low. It's taking substances from a high concentration to a low concentration, but osmosis is very specific to just water. That's when we're moving water across the membrane. A great example is the egg osmosis lab, where we put an egg in water and the egg actually gets bigger because water is going in. There's more water outside the egg than inside the egg, so the egg's going to get bigger. You put that same egg inside syrup, well, the egg's going to shrivel up because there's more water inside the egg than in the syrup, so it's going to be going out. Okay, diffusion. Diffusion is the same thing as osmosis, except that it's not moving water. It's moving everything else but water. Gas molecules is a great example of diffusion. If we were to stand in our classroom and I'll stand in one of the corners of the classroom and start spraying a perfume or a cologne, the person at the end of the classroom or on the other end of the classroom will not smell it for a few minutes until that smell would actually diffuse. But the person right in front of me would smell it right away, right? But those molecules would actually diffuse until they even out in the room and everybody can smell the cologne or perfume. That's diffusion, okay? Osmosis is very specific to water. Diffusion is everything else but water. Okay, and remember, those three examples do not require energy. Now, on the other side, active transport, okay, active transport does require energy, and examples of that are of active transport is endocytosis, exocytosis, and protein pumps. Okay, exocytosis, just like the word says, endocytosis, just like the word says, endo, within, to bring in, is when cells bring in large molecules into the cell. Okay, and that's endocytosis. Exocytosis is the opposite. That's where large molecules are brought out of the cell. Okay, especially waste. The cell removes waste from within the cell through exocytosis. Okay, endocytosis is a great example of how endosymbiosis actually happened. How cells were engulfed by another cell and then eventually became the eukaryotic cells that we know today. Protein pumps, those are just pumps that move things against a concentration gradient. Okay, so and again, they're going from low to high, and that's something that we need to write down on passive transport and active transport. Passive transport goes from high concentration to low concentration. Active transport goes from low concentration to high, and that's the reason you need energy. Just the same example as the roller coaster. If you're going up the roller coaster. They need to input a lot of energy to get that cart all the way to the top. But once you're at the top, they can let go of the cart, and the cart doesn't need any more energy than gravity to go down. Okay, so again, passive transport, no energy. It goes from high to low. Examples are facilitated diffusion, osmosis, and diffusion. And then active transport is low to high, and those include exocytosis, endocytosis, and protein pumps. All right, so now we know the two types of cell transport, right? Passive, no energy; active, energy, and then there's examples of each. But when we're talking about the transport of molecules, there's also three types of solutions that we need to look at, okay? So types of solutions include hypotonic solutions, isotonic solutions, and hypertonic solutions. And these solutions, the name of the solutions, depend on how much water or solute is in the cell, inside the cell or outside the cell. So let's look at hypotonic first. Let's pretend that we're looking at a cell inside a beaker, right? And there's water in the beaker, but there's also some sugar in that water. So we put the cell in there, and inside the cell there's 80% water, 20% sugar. Okay, and the water that was in the beaker is 90% water, 10% sugar. Well, hypotonic solutions, okay, are solutions that have where there's more water outside the cell, right, and less solute. So as you can see, there's less sugar outside, so that means there's got to be more water than inside the cell. 20% sugar inside the cell, 80% water, 10% sugar outside, 90% water, right? So we know that water moves from high to low concentration. So what that means is that the water from the cell, or the water around the cell, will go into the cell, causing the cell to swell up, because there's more water outside than inside. So that means it's going to be going into the cell until it evens out. And again, this is homeostasis, guys. Cells are trying to maintain equilibrium. So if there's more water outside than inside, they're going to take in the water to balance things out. Okay, and if you look at the sugar, which is called a solute, okay, the thing that's being dissolved in the solvent, which is the water, there's more inside than outside. Okay, so again, more water outside, so the water is going to go in. There's another type of solution, and it's called isotonic solutions. And when a cell is in an isotonic solution, then no change happens. Okay, nothing happens to the cell. If you look at the numbers there, 80% water inside, 20% salt inside. Same thing in the outside, 80% water, 20% salt outside. So everything is the same inside and outside of the cell. Okay, and one thing that I need you to remember is that water does go in the cell, but it comes out of the cell at the same rate. So if it goes in, it comes out at the same rate. So it's not that water doesn't go in and out. It still goes in and out. It just goes in at the same rate that it comes out. Okay, so that's isotonic solutions. The last one that we'll talk about is called hypertonic solutions. And hypertonic solutions are solutions that where there's more water inside the cell than outside of the cell. So this cell is being placed in a hypertonic solution, and as you can see, 80% water, 20% salt inside the cell, 30% water, 70% salt outside of the cell. So that means water is going to move from high to low, so that means the water will go out of the cell, and that will cause the cell to shrink. Okay, and that's exactly what happens when you put a freshwater fish into a saltwater tank. Okay, their cells are trying to maintain homeostasis, so they're shooting all that water out to balance the cells out and to maintain homeostasis, but they eventually die because they will dehydrate. It's the same idea behind drinking ocean water, right? Ocean water is very salty. So when you drink it, you're putting too much salt in your body, so your cells are trying to maintain homeostasis, and this is actually what's happening right here. Okay, you're losing water because your cells are shooting that water out to balance the pressure and everything that's in the cell. So you're dehydrating more. So the more you drink, the more thirsty you get. Okay. All right. I hope this helped. Let me know if you have any questions.